Hey guys, welcome to the OVERDRIVE channel. So we are out here today to test ride the three Yezdi bikes which were recently launched. So we have the top of the line Adventure, the flagship model, the entry level bike which is the Roadster, as well as the mid-spec Scrambler. Now we are not going to be riding these bikes in particular because as you can see they're all kitted out with the additional accessories and stuff. But we do have a long day ahead of us. We have three motorcycles to sample, not a lot of time in hand. So well, let's just get to riding some bikes. So we're out here with the first of the three Yezdi models that we're going to be riding today, and it's the Yezdi Scrambler. Now this to me is the most important or the most unique proposition from Yezdi at this particular time because there currently is no other Scrambler motorcycle in the market at this particular price point. Now this bike costs around 2,05,000 rupees ex-showroom of course, and the next closest Scrambler will probably cost you in excess of 10 lakh rupees. So that is a very unique proposition. So now we have a very limited time to spend with this motorcycle, so I'm just gonna get my hands on it. I'm just gonna head off road and check out what it's all about.
The Yezdi Scrambler is a very handsome looking machine. It looks like a motorcycle that's more expensive than it actually costs. It rocks the Scrambler look with its round headlamp, the offset round instrument cluster, that wide handlebar, the narrow tank, the rib seat, those flat side panels, and even those sizable spoked wheels. Though the twin exhaust cans are a bit low slung and can get hit when you gun the bike over some rough terrain. Even the open welds on the heat shields over the stock twin pipes did look a bit suspect. The Scrambler also gets 3 ABS modes and even a USB and Type-C charging socket. Features that are standard fitment on Yezdi's flagship adventure bike, but those which the Roadster misses out on. The Scrambler also doesn't get Bluetooth connectivity and turn-by-turn navigation. Things that are unique to the Scrambler are the spoked wheels and tyre setup, which is a 19-inch front wheel and 17-inch rear, shored in 100 and 140 section tyres respectively, the display unit, and the rib seat. Now all the three Yezdi motorcycles that we're riding today house a very slick 6-speed gearbox and the same liquid-cooled 334cc single-cylinder motor. But the three bikes' engines come in different states of tune to complement their individual character. The Scrambler's engine, for instance, is tuned to produce a higher amount of torque at low RPM in comparison to the other two Yezdis. But its torque curve is rather flat compared to the other two. The result is that it feels a bit jumpy when you initially set off, but the longer you ride it, the more you get used to it. But even still, the steering of the test bike I rode wasn't very light in comparison to the other two, and this could prove to be a bit tiring over a relatively long off-road stint.
Now after riding the Yezdi Scrambler both on the road and off it on short stints, a couple of things that I found out about this bike is the fact that, okay, first of all, off the road, well, it's a nice fun bike to ride. Of course, the suspension is a bit on the stiffer side, so it does tend to get a little choppy over the rough stuff. But the tires hold up really well, both the front and the rear. And the fact that you can switch the ABS to off-road mode, which disconnects the ABS at the rear, well, that's a real plus point of this bike. Yes, it's a very predictable, manageable bike. The handlebar is nice and wide apart. So yeah, it's a fun bike to ride. The tank is nice and narrow as well, so standing up is not an issue. The only downside is my hands kept hitting the mirrors every time I stood up and gave it the beans. And when I hit a couple of rough patches, yeah, my hands took a bit of a beating with the mirror, so I had to adjust them a bit. On the road, yes, once again, the suspension is a bit on the stiffer side, so it does tend to get choppy over the rough stuff. And even the small bumps, well, you'll really feel it all reverberate through the handlebar and even the foot pegs at higher RPM. So, but overall, well, the engine, 29 PS of power, 28 Nm, well, it all works really well. It all comes together really well with this motorcycle. And it seems like a very valuable proposition at this point, given its price point and everything. As a Scrambler motorcycle at this price, well, it's a fun motorcycle to ride. So now we're out here with our second Yezdi motorcycle for the day that we're going to be testing. It's the Yezdi Roadster. Now priced at 1.98 lakh ex-showroom of course. This is the most affordable of the three motorcycles that have been launched by Yezdi last month. And this is a completely road-biased motorcycle. As you can see, it's the only one of the three that come with alloy wheels. The caster angle is the steepest. It's around 29 degrees compared to the others. The wheelbase, it lies in the middle between the Adventure and the Scrambler as well. And most of what you see on this motorcycle comes as standard fitment, bar the crash guards up front and the headlight guard as well. So I'm just going to hit the road and tell you what riding it is all about then.
Here, the single-cylinder motor makes 29 PS of power and torque as well, and this motor just loves to be revved. But like with the others here, it can also tend to get quite loud at higher revs. The brakes here, just as with the other bikes, performs very well at shedding speeds rapidly with the ABS, while I found that the tires hold up very nicely on all road surfaces, even some loose gravel too. The Roadster is a very easy bike to ride, and although it's rather comfortable, I found the suspension to be stiffly set up, which made the bike feel more at ease at higher speeds rather than at low cruising speeds. However, the twin rear shocks can be stiffened or softened as you like. Cruising at 80 kmph at around 4250 rpm was a cakewalk. But once you hit triple digit speeds, the engine can get a bit loud and feel a bit strained. And that's when the vibrations really kick in. Even with its tall gearing, pulling off an overtake on this bike at anything below 100 kmph will never be a problem.
So this is a Roadster motorcycle, and it's not a complete cruiser motorcycle, so to speak, because the riding position, of course, it has decently wide handlebars, but the foot pegs, once again, are slightly rear set. So it'll have you in a slightly more sportier riding position than you would usually assume on a regular cruiser. As a whole, this bike comes together really well, and it definitely has its own character. Now, how it fares against the competition, we'll have to just ride the bikes like the Yezdi, the Java, and the bikes from Enfield back to back to know what it's all about. But on first impressions, this one is quite impressive. As far as the Roadster's design is concerned, well, it looks like a very neat motorcycle altogether. It comes together really well. Of course, there are some modern aspects to it as well as some neat retro touches. As far as the modern touches go, well, you have alloy wheels, which the older bikes, the older SD models didn't come with. And then again, this model is liquid cooled, which the older bikes were all air cooled. As far as throwbacks towards the older models are concerned, well, there are some neat touches like the round headlamp and the tail lamp units, as well as I really like these side panels. The engine covers, basically, they are vented, they're ribbed and vented as were the older models back in the day. And of course the twin pea shooter exhaust, which are also a very neat throwback to the motorcycles of yesteryear. Also, it comes with a very old school ignition system, which is located here just below the tank, as well as this old locking mechanism for the steering. So these are all neat touches, and it all comes together really well with this motorcycle. The fit and finish levels are a lot better on this motorcycle than on the Scrambler. So the split seat is also on the softer side. It's quite accommodating, but I haven't really ridden it over a long distance and over a long period of time to really know how how the seat would fare over a long ride. So that is left to be deciphered, and otherwise it's a very neat and well put together motorcycle.
The Roadster misses out on a good amount of kit that comes stock with its siblings. There's no Bluetooth connectivity, switchable ABS modes, or even any charging sockets for that matter. Even the rear springs are rather simplistic. And strangely, this is the only one of the three new Yezdis that features a Zoroastrian symbol on its rear fender.
So it's been a really long day, but we're finally out here with the Yezdi Adventure, our third and final motorcycle that we're going to be testing today. Well, it's the flagship model that Yezdi have on offer currently, and it has all the bells and whistles as far as riding aids and electronics go. This is the only model that has a single upswept exhaust in comparison to the other bikes that we've tested today. And it has the longest wheelbase, it's the heaviest of the three, and it also makes the most power of the three models that Yezdi have on offer currently. Well, of course, Yezdi could have done a lot more differently with regard to the design of this bike. It bears an uncanny resemblance to the Royal Enfield Himalayan. But then again, now we're out here to check on how capable this machine is it fun to ride, and is it a worthy bike that you can take on a long touring run.
When it came to the Adventure, I particularly liked the tune of the motor with this Yezdi machine as compared to the other two. The torque delivery graph we were shown earlier on at the presentation indicated that the Adventure put the hammer down in the most relaxed manner initially and peaked out at 30 Nm at 6000 rpm. But it seemed to be very much on point with this machine. acceleration off the line felt more than adequate both on and off the road. The suspension took on absolutely everything that I threw at it with aplomb. So whether you're the ruffian sorts who prefer to thrash about off-road or the civilized type who's just up for a long, good highway run, this bike will manage it all in real style and comfort. The front end was light enough to easily change direction when on a steep, uneven decline off-road, and although it's no razor-sharp corner carving machine, it didn't take much effort putting this one through the bends on-road either. The adjustable display is a good plus point, but sadly I didn't get to check out the navigation feature on this bike this time around.
So what's the Yezdi adventure like to ride? Well, after taking it for off-road through the course of that was planned for us today, well, it's a very comfortable motorcycle, I'll tell you that, and it's a very manageable and predictable motorcycle even over the rough stuff. You have the option of switching off the ABS at the rear, which is fantastic, and it really helps given the amount of power that this motorcycle produces, even low down the power band. And that's a really good thing with this motorcycle, the amount of power on tap. You can really power out of situations at the twist of a throttle, and that's something that I really like about this motorcycle. Also, this is the third motorcycle that I'm testing because it's been a really long day and it's been tiring, and out of all the three, the Yezdi Adventure is definitely the most comfortable of the three. Its travel suspension is longer, and it's got the more complex monoshock unit at the back, and of course the seat and the ergonomics, it all comes together really well with this motorcycle. Over long distances on the road, I took it for a spin on the road as well, and I really found it to be quite relaxed, the whole riding experience. The engine seems less strained compared to the other two motorcycles that I rode today, and it seems like a very good touring motorcycle at the end of it. So even if you don't plan to really do any hardcore off-roading and simply want to go in for a long distance tourer, this motorcycle should really float your boat. So it's been a long day testing three of the Yezdis, and although it's been a long tiring day, it still feels a bit short-lived after only getting a short stint on all three motorcycles throughout the day. But I am still left with a couple of impressions. Let's start off with the Roadster. Of the three, it is the motorcycle that pays tribute to the Yezdi brand, the motorcycles from the yesteryears, the most, I feel, with its design and all it has to offer. It's a rather simplistic bike, but it's a fun motorcycle to ride nonetheless. Moving to the Scrambler, well, this is the most unique of the three motorcycles. Obviously, there's no motorcycle in this particular category as of now, and it definitely offers a unique proposition given its price point and its capabilities as well. It's a decent off-road machine as well as on-road, not so much so to be honest. But once again, it's a Scrambler that cost you just around a little over 2 lakhs, and with what it has to offer, it seems like a very decent proposition given its price point and its capabilities, and it also comes with a decent amount of kit as well. Now moving to the Adventure, well, it's not really unique per se, but it is a fun motorcycle nonetheless, and out of all three, I think I had the most fun on this particular motorcycle. Although the Scrambler really stood out for being what it is and all it has to offer. The Adventure, once again, it doesn't do anything spectacularly well, but just with the power it has on tap, its weight, all it brings to the table in terms of features, well, it is a very decent motorcycle. Now, how these motorcycles fare in comparison to the competition in their various segments is yet to be deciphered. We have to ride the competition and these motorcycles back to back. But from first impression wise, well, all these motorcycles really come across as decent products given their price point, and if you're in the market for any of these categories, you definitely should give Yezdi a look through.